What's on, ladies and gentlemen? My name's Ross, I like games, and today we need to take a little bit of a look at some Digimon TCG news. There's been a bunch of little news stories coming out over the past couple days, and quite frankly, we need to have a little bit of a look at it. So with all of that borne in mind, who can tell me how many different languages the Digimon TCG is officially published in? 3. The answer, ladies and gentlemen, is 3. Now, this is interesting and important and relevant at the moment because on both the English language and Japanese language websites, they have just clarified the rules for using them. And essentially, they have confirmed that there are 3 languages in which the game is currently published, and that is Japanese, English, and simplified Chinese. And this is of course extremely relevant because there is a fairly important question as to which regions can we use which language of cards. And if, it's like someone like Pokemon. This is kind of important because you have Spanish language cards, and there's kind of a silly rule for Pokemon whereby people in the US cannot use Spanish language cards in official tournaments, despite the fact that large parts of the US have Spanish as their primary language, whereas anyone living in Europe can use any European language cards in tournaments, even though we don't all speak all of the languages, which is a little bit silly. No such issue here when it comes to the Digimon TCG, because it's just published in Japanese, in simplified Chinese, and in English. So the Japanese version is basically used in Asian territories other than China. So you've got Japan, Hong Kong, Taiwan, Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, the Philippines, and Thailand. All of those use Japanese language cards. Of course, we did have that issue I told you about just the other day, whereby over in, countries other than Japan, they banned those magazine promos because, well, they're hard to get hold of outside of Japan, even though you could get hold of them, but they were kind of awkward, and it just led to all kinds of issues, alright? So essentially what they did was they just banned them outside of Japan, which I understand some people won't be terribly happy with, but it did make the most sense. So those cards are not available for tournament play outside of Japan. But other than that, your Japanese language cards are available to be used in tournaments in Asia, but outside of China. Make sense? Good. That's good. Now, as for English language cards, you are looking at North America, Latin America, Europe, and Oceania. And yes, you could say a similar thing to what I said with Pokemon a moment ago. There are large parts of Latin America and North America that speak Spanish. And obviously over in Brazil, you're talking Portuguese. And large parts of Europe don't really speak English. They speak other European languages. But the fact of the matter is, English is... it seems to be the predominant language. I'm sorry if that sounds mean, and I'm sorry if that sounds rude. It's not meant to, but there's a reason why the cards are printed in English at the moment, but they're not printed in any other European languages. It's because people in the US and the UK, etc., generally, we of them speak Spanish in the US, but in the UK we basically don't speak anything but English, and then French and German, we don't generally tend to see them used in places like the US and the UK, which are big markets, whereas people in France, people in Germany, people in Spanish, an awful lot of them do learn to speak English from a very young age because of the prevalence of English. That's why English ends up being the language. And feel free to be upset about this, feel free to not like this, I understand that entirely. I'm just explaining to you what the deal is and explaining to you why English ends up being the language. If you want to lobby for the release of cards in Spanish, German, French, etc., I'll be honest with you, that would be cool and I would be all in favour. And that's kind of annoying in a way because I buy way too many Japanese cards, but as it stands, you can only use English language cards in these territories, not Japanese. And then simplified Chinese can only be used in inland China. I could be honest with you, I don't remember seeing many Chinese cards. I don't know how big Digimon is over in inland China. I don't know how many tournaments they have, etc. But apparently it's a thing, and I met the cards in that language, but it's only for that region. Cool. Now we know. Speaking of rules and things to talk about, I told you the other day about the Ultimate Cup. And the Ultimate Cup sounds like a lot of fun. Now, if you're in Europe, the Ultimate Cup has already kind of been and gone in terms of registration. Now, I know not everybody is terribly happy about this. For my money, I went on at 7 o'clock when they said it was going up to buy tickets. And I went on at 7. And I got in at 7. And it was fine. Honestly, I understand that not everybody had that same experience. I understand that some people were unable to get in. I understand that some people had issues which meant they couldn't enter the tournament and all of that. All I can say is I'm really sorry for anyone that missed out. That sucks, and I hope there are more tickets made available. I hope you guys managed to get into the tournament. I thought the website worked fine. I went on at 7 o'clock when they went up for order, and I got in straight away. But I've heard from enough people who know what they're doing, i.e. people who aren't just misunderstanding the website, who are unable to get in. And it seems like although the majority of people who got there at the advertised time did get tickets, it seems like some people were missing out for reasons kind of beyond their control. So hopefully more tickets will be made available. And remember, there are some really, really cool prizes which are being given out here. I mean, just for entering, just for rocking up, you get yourself a Demi Vmon, which looks amazing, and then it goes up through, you've got your Vmon for top 128, your X Vmon for top 64, your Pale Dramon for top 32, your Imperial Dramon Fighter Mode for top 8, your Omnimon for top 2, and Imperial Dramon Paladin Mode that you get for winning the whole gosh darn thing. Really cool promos. But again, with these tournaments, we end up having a situation where they are trying out with some new rules, and that is happening here. One thing which is very, very important to note, these are rules which only affect the Ultimate Cup, and the Ultimate Cup is not qualifying you for Worlds, and it is not qualifying you for finals in the US or anything like that. This is very much a standalone tournament with some cool prizes on offer, but it's not actually going to be qualifying you for the big tournaments, so it's not as important. That is very important. And Digimon did go and send out a tweet saying, regarding the modified rules for this event, these Ultimate Cup events will use Card Game Fest mulligan rules and no side deck. Thank you for your understanding, and we look forward to seeing you at our Ultimate Cup events, the Digimon card game team. So side decks are out, but mulligans remain. Remember, side deck is where you have kind of extra cards which you can basically have sitting there. So in a best of 3, you won't have them in your deck game 1, but you can kind of add them in for game 2, game 3, and so on. I've always thought side decks in Digimon are awkward because we've got cards like Tumon. And Tumon is just an example, but it's an example which really shows where I'm going with this. Because you see, Tumon has got a skill, a static skill, which just says, your opponent can't gain memory except with Tamer effects. So if I'm against, for instance, a Dark Dramon deck, well, the whole thing is putting D-Brigade back on top of their deck and gaining memory. So if I've got a really good matchup against a lot of decks, but I'm worried about Dark Dramon, I don't need to put 4 Tumon in my deck. All I need to do is put 4 Tumon in my side deck, and if I end up against Dark Dramon or a deck of that nature, I can just sub them in between games and turn a really bad matchup into a significantly better matchup. Side decks in Digimon, with the kind of cards we've got that really do give hard counters to certain decks, I'm not a huge fan of. But as well as that, we do have mulligans, and with side decks being out, mulligans are actually still in. So at this stage, we should probably remind ourselves what the mulligan rules are. After players have placed their security and drawn their starting hand, they may review their hand and mulligan. place all cards in your hand to the bottom of your deck. Do not shuffle, do not replace your security cards, draw 5 new cards, subsequent mulligans are not permitted. And I did say before, I kind of like where they're going with mulligans here, because remember, this is very much it's a one-time thing, but the cards are going to the bottom of your deck and you're not shuffling. And remember, Digimon is not a game with lots of draw, and it really isn't a game with lots of search, and you very rarely shuffle your deck. In a game like Pokemon, cards can go to the bottom of your deck and you can get them back pretty easily. That is not the case in Digimon. So when deciding whether to mulligan, it's not just looking at your hand and how playable it is, it's also knowing that if you choose to mulligan, those cards are going to the bottom of your deck, and you might not get them back. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is honestly a pretty gosh darned big deal. So there we go, a little bit of a rules update today in terms of the languages you can use in particular tournaments and how the rules are shaping up for the Ultimate Cup. And now, ladies and gentlemen, it's over to you guys. That's all I need to tell you about this, but I want to hear from you guys. I want to know your thoughts. I want to know, basically, anything you want to tell me. So let me know in the comment section, would ya? Go nuts! Be nice! And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWasi. That's where we talk Digimon and a whole bunch of other card games. And please do consider checking out patreon.com/PTCGradio, where you can support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all kinds of fun things. But by far the most important thing as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching Wasi Plays.